Hey everyone, Rose here. It's been many months, but I finally did it. I finally read more than one whole freaking book in a month. In the month of February. Yeah, what? I read 5 books in February, and really all it took was just a bit of self-discipline and time management. Who would have thunk? So in celebration of Black History Month, and as mentioned in my February wrap-up plus/TBR, yeah, I only read books this month by Black authors, and good news, it was a successful reading month. Gotta love that. The first book that I read this month, yeah, I'm recording this in February, and this is going up in February. Time is weird. I read the memoir Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. Gosh, guys, I can't believe it took me this long to read this book because I've been wanting to read it for quite some time, but I finally did it. Why did I wait so long? I don't know, because I loved this book. Bear in mind that there is content warning within this book. There is child abuse, domestic abuse, animal abuse, colorism, racism. And if any of you have read this and you think there are any other content warnings that should be mentioned, please let me know in the comments below, and to let everyone else know. I know that there is an Audible version of this book, which I can't wait to read, and it is narrated by Trevor Noah, which from this book and just watching Trevor on The Daily Show and watching some of his interviews, I already know that Trevor, he's a really good storyteller. As such, his memoir, it's an easy read. And what I mean by that is his writing is clear, it's easy to follow his descriptions of people, of places, of scenarios, and so forth. The nature of his stories, of the memoirs, they do definitely range from being light, being very heavy, and many things that just fall in between. Something that is just absolutely remarkable and is incredibly evident in this book is Trevor's strength of character, which he very much was very heavily influenced by his mother. I definitely think that all of us could stand to learn a thing or two from them. This book was incredibly enlightening and frankly very educational. I probably learned more about South Africa and the apartheid rule than I ever did in any kind of formal schooling. Of course, this memoir is not a historical book. Nevertheless, Trevor's individual experiences taught me a lot of things, which I am just really grateful for. To conclude my thoughts, this was such an engaging book. Every time I picked it up, I never wanted to put it down. And if you are familiar at all with Trevor, then you will know, and it should not come as a surprise, that there is much humor and levity to be found within this book. Yeah, I highly recommend this, and it's weird to give any kind of star rating to a memoir. But if I had to, I would definitely give this 5 stars. The next book that I read in February was a short story collection called Lots Stories by Bryan Washington. I think it was possibly my very first short story collection I've ever read. The book falls under the categories of domestic fiction and also LGBT literature. To state up front, overall, I did enjoy this book, but I don't think it was quite for me. I definitely think there will be a big audience that will find this book and these stories very special and just very important to them. I need help here, folks. Okay, what is the narrative style? If you're familiar with it, what is the narrative style or maybe the prose style of this book? On screen, I will have a picture to aid my line of question. I cannot recall ever reading a book written this way, where the only way I can think to describe it is it doesn't follow traditional dialogue patterns, I suppose. I did a little bit of Googling to try and help me out, but so far I've come up empty. So, gosh, yes, please help me. I am so curious. Okay, so on to what the heck this book is actually about. I believe there were 13 or 14 short stories within this book, and while most of the stories do center around the main character or the main narrator of this book, some of the other stories are of individuals who live or have lived in an area, words, a specific area of Houston, Texas. These lot stories predominantly focus on minority groups that have lived in this particular area. The main narrator, as we learn at the very end of the book, his name is Nick. Hopefully that's not a big spoiler, but yeah, his name is Nick. We follow him in his life from adolescence to sometime in adulthood, and his overarching story and his family's story is kind of cut up, I suppose, or interspersed within that big story are the other individual stories. Some of those other individual stories held my attention more than some of the other ones. Am I doing this right? Am I saying this right? I think this is all making sense. I will say that some of the writing wasn't always clear to me or as strong because, and I came across a pretty apt comparison when I was reading some reviews on this particular book. It gave me a feeling as if you are sitting in a car next to the narrator or the storyteller, and in the moment, you're understanding what's going on, but once you step outside of the car, you just have this feeling, I had this feeling of, wait, what just happened? So that is how I felt with some of the stories. On a brighter note, on a different note, I definitely admire Bryan Washington's ability to say so much with so few words. I think that's a great and talented skill to have. Yeah. Hi, future me. I just wanted to pop in to say two quick things that came to mind. Okay, first, it did take me about 20 pages or so to really get into the flow of the book. I think most likely because I'm not used to this narrative and general writing style. In the end, overall, I'm not in love with the writing style, but I'm definitely willing to give it another go. Second and last thing that I want to mention. Oh, and this is a bit spoilery, so fair warning. So therefore, for anyone who has actually read this book, okay. One of the short stories, it focuses on a woman named Gloria. I think she's the cousin of the main guy throughout the story named Nick. Even so, correct me if I'm wrong, but did Gloria, a 30-something-year-old adult, have sex with her teenage cousin? If so, I am a bit at a loss of what else to really say about this book because while yes, I did overall enjoy it, at the same time, I didn't honestly always get some of the stories, which honestly makes me feel a little bit dumb. I am also unsure of what kind of star rating to give this book at the present time, so hopefully y'all are okay with me just saying I liked it. The third book I read was a YA fiction novel. Same thing. I already have this scripted out. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble getting my words out. Anyways, Dear Martin by Nick Stone. Ooh, I had so many emotions while reading this. Wow, I was hooked from moment go. I didn't want to put this book down every time I picked it up. This is probably considered a relatively short book. I want to say it's 220-ish pages. I read a hardback copy. If that tells you anything. Anyways, I finished this book in 2 days. That's what I'm getting at. Part of that reason is because I was on a bit of a time constraint because I had to get that book and 2 other books back to the library before they were due. And I will also admit that a vast majority of my reading was done in the very late latter half of February. But details. So, without giving away too many details or spoilers, no spoilers, this book follows a brilliant senior in high school, Justice McAllister. This story does take place in our modern times. Justice, he comes from a rougher neighborhood and he does attend a pretty elite high school, private school. So as a black teenager, as a black person, he definitely has many a obstacle. Therefore, throughout the book, he's conducting a sort of personal experiment. It's sort of what would Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. do? So what he's doing is he is writing in a sort of journal to Mr. King in a way to seek guidance. In this story, Justice and some of the other characters, they are faced with prejudice and racism, particularly from white police officers, and this certainly impacts Justice's life for various reasons and to various degrees. Now, when it comes to Justice, I really liked his character. I kind of felt almost like a big sister in some way. I was rooting for him. I was celebrating his triumphs. I was bemoaning his youthful romantic interests sometimes. In particular, one specific romantic interest. If you've read this book, you'll probably know who I am talking about. Youth. It's a learning phase. Aren't we all learning? Getting off track. While this story is definitely focused and centered around justice, something I really enjoyed was we still were able to get other people's perspectives and hear multiple sides of the story, so to speak, particularly when it comes to the racial issue here in the US. And because of this, it really made the entire story feel very well-rounded. Another favorite element, or I guess elements, was the use of, is it mixed media? Is that the term I'm looking for? The phrase I'm looking for? I think mixed media, because there was the journal entries, it's like audio commentary from news outlets. Yep. Yes, mixed media. There was that mixed in with the entire story. I really liked that. I felt it added to the commentary, to the narrative, to the story as a whole. It worked for me. And simply, yes, I liked that. Another great thing, there is a character arc that happens in the story that I really enjoyed. I can't say more than that. Again, if you've read this, you will probably know who I am talking about. I think my only critique, or I feel like it's more of a mixture of a critique and I think just my personal preference. I do wish that there were a few characters I wish that their character development had been bolstered up a little bit. And then just very broadly, I'm getting very excited. I spat a little bit. Very broadly speaking, I do wish there was just more details in general kind of sprinkled throughout. I don't know how else to phrase that. In short, though, I very much enjoyed this story. I shed some tears. Frankly, if anybody who has read this book and you didn't get at least a little bit misty-eyed, I think you need to reevaluate your life. Anywho's, I am definitely very eager to read other works by Nick Stone, that is for sure. Rating-wise, I would rate this book 4.5 stars out of 5. Yes, I really enjoyed this book. Perhaps at a later time, in space, I just lost my whole train of thought. At a later date, I might bump this up to a 5 stars, but in any case, this is a big yes for me. Go forth and read it. Fantastic. Technically, the last book I read, since the last item that I actually read was a comic. So the last book I read was The Deep by Rivers Solomon. This is a fantasy novella and it's inspired by a song called The Deep by a group called Clippings. By the way, in my January wrap-up, I said that Rivers Solomon is in a group of women authors that I will be reading for this month. I want to correct that. Rivers Solomon is non-binary. The story follows our main character, Yetu, who she is many things. She is a Wajinru, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is a mermaid. She is a descendant from pregnant slaves that were thrown overboard many centuries ago. Among her people, she is the lone historian who holds all of the memories of their ancestors. And she is also a person who is just desperately seeking to understand who she is, if she is anyone outside of being the historian. For added context, once a year there is a sacred gathering of all Wajinru where they all partake in a spiritual occasion. That's not quite the word I'm looking for, but a spiritual occasion in which the remembering takes place, is performed. And this means that for a brief time, Yetu, or really any historian at the moment, they will share all of the memories from their ancestors with everyone else. And so for that, it's usually for maybe a couple days. For that brief time period, Yetu would definitely explain it as being free from the burden of the painful memories that she is responsible for holding on to. At the same time, there is a larger story and question going on whether or not is it okay to place this responsibility on one single individual. A big part of this story is just the importance of knowing one's history, because that is and can be very intrinsic to one's self-identity, aka history matters to a lot of people. Now, considering there are mermaids in this story does have a very fantastical element to it. And while overall I do think it was pretty well developed, I definitely want and wish that there was just a little bit more of it weaved into the story. I will also say that it took about 20-ish pages for me to really get into the groove of this story, to be able to follow it. But after that point, I didn't have any issue. Also note that this story, it does time jump a few times. Therefore, this story is not 100% told from Yetu's point of view. There are I think there were 3 other point of views at some point. And whenever this did happen, I was confused for a little bit, but it really overall was not an issue. I think the last thing I really want to say is there is also a romance within this story. And for that, it was a little bit ill-formed, but I still liked it. That's the end of my thought on that particular point. Overall, again, I did enjoy this story, but in the same line as Lot's stories, I'm not really sure what star rating to give it at this moment in time. So once again, I hope you are okay with me saying I liked it. Ching! I will admit that at this present time of filming this particular video, let's get this into frame, I have not actually read this wonderful comic. Again, it is a reread, but whatever. I'm going to insert a clip of future me probably gushing about this because, yeah. So enjoy that. Future me here, and this is a take 2, so things are already going super swell. Also, yes, I honestly just did not care. This is bedhead. I couldn't be bothered. And there's also a hat happening. So anywho's, let's get into Check Please, Year 3 by Ngozi Ukazu. Also, I don't particularly feel like holding this up the whole time, so with the decor in the background, isn't it great? That's just gonna sit there. In the first round of filming this, I said that Year 3 is hard to summarize, especially if you have not read the comic. I still stand by that. So the most that I can tell you about Year 3 is simply it follows Eric Biddle. He is the main character here. He is our main guy. That's him right there, that blurry image of him. In his 3rd year of college, he's a procrastinator. He is a stress baker. He absolutely loves to bake. He is a hockey player, an excellent one at that. He is also in a relationship with a wonderful guy. Can't say who, especially if you haven't read this stuff. They are, in some regards, one or both of them are in the closet, so that definitely makes things challenging and difficult, and that is something that they have to face throughout the comic. What else can I tell you? One of the characters is now in the NHL, the National Hockey League, so within the comic it follows that particular storyline, and fellow teammates and friends of Biddy's, they are going to be graduating at the end of the year, so just growing up, changing, man, big life-changing things happening. Gosh, that's really all I can tell you without getting into spoilers. I probably didn't make that sound the most exciting thing, but trust me, in my entirely and not entirely biased opinion, this comic is just absolutely wonderful. I love it to pieces. I read so much fan fiction dealing with this particular comic because I love it so much. But I did type out some notes that are far more comprehensive, and I'm going to read them directly from my computer because, yeah, I said I admire Ngozi so much in being able to tell a story, multiple stories really, in such a thoughtful and compact way. Since she has the aid of pictures to be able to tell the stories, I think she's so brilliant at utilizing the medium that she uses. It's so full, it's so detailed, and so rich, and particularly if you look at the comic from year 1 to year 3, her progression as a storyteller and as an artist is just, it's so wonderful to see. It's so lovely to be able to witness and to be a part of. Guys, she's just so dang talented. Oh my god. Check Please overall is very much about letting characters shine, to be who they are and who they want to be. We have big buff hockey players in this comic who are 100% tapped into their emotions. This comic is very much not about toxic masculinity. None of that here, thank you very much. And I don't know why this comic, it's very much a comedy. Yeah, there are normal, everyday, dramatic elements into it, but really overall, it's a lighthearted story and it's a positive one. But on the aspect of comedy, sometimes it will surprise me over and over again of just how funny it is. Sometimes in small and big ways, which I just flip and adore it. I couldn't tell you how many times I was just laughing out loud and legitimately just like, well, I can't get it in camera. I was slapping my knee. Maybe you heard that. I was slapping my knee because funny times. The last comprehensive thing that I typed out was an important message of year 3 is about having each other's backs, whether that is your friends, your partner, your teammates, your family. Having a support system is very important, really, no matter what. I think that is all I have to say, both off the cuff, I suppose, and things that I actually thought out. I very much encourage you all to check it out. I will leave a link in the description box below, a link to Ngozi's Check Please website where you can read the comic for free, or I'm pretty sure she has it linked on her website that you can purchase physical copies of the comic. They're so beautiful, and it's so satisfying to be able to just hold in your possession. There we go. That's so much better. The good thing about recording this a second time is I forgot to give you a star rating. Drum roll, please. Will you even be surprised? Probably not. I'm gonna give this 5 stars. Okay, throwing it back to future me. I feel like this was a fairly lengthy wrap-up, and I am a little scared. That's a little dramatic, but I'm a little scared to imagine if I had read, 10 books in this month. Have any of you read any of the books that I talked about in this video? Let's chat about that in the comments down below, preferably without spoilers. Yeah. Also, did you have a successful reading month? Whatever your definition of successful is. Nailing this. Now for me, I did learn something in this particular reading month. Setting aside the fact that yes, overall it was a positive month for me, I don't really enjoy publicly sharing a TBR. I prefer the flexibility of just changing my mind on a whim, as I tend to do, and just reading whatever I want within a month, and then I guess surprising you all at the end of a month to say, look, this is what I read. I honestly commend other booktubers who publicly put out a TBR and just happily stick to that. However, I don't really appreciate this mostly self-inflicted pressure and goal to do a thing. Thus, TBRs will probably remain not a thing for me and this channel. I honestly don't feel bad about that. I know that it's a staple for a lot of booktubers to do TBRs, but not everybody does it, I doubt. And that's fine. In essence, we're all still talking about books. Wow, I'm getting way off topic. I just need to wrap this up. Thank you all very much for watching this video. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are on this big wide world of ours. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.
Bonk.
I'm gonna have to cut out so much. Oh my lord. Nom 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 nom. Yeah, we're good. What did I just do with my voice? The fudge? Okay, I need to stop recording.